This argument has been around longer than the Tonewood debate, longer than the lore of the Clon Centaur, and it is something we have certainly come to expect from our resident rock and roll provocateur, Gene Simmons. This concept that I'll basically dumb down to 4 words: play fast, no good. Gene says, I never saw myself as, nor was I ever interested in being a bass virtuoso. I don't like show-offs in music. I'm drawn to memorable moments instead. That's what music is about for me. He doesn't like show-offs in music. Yes, the only way you can show off in music is wear a costume, okay? Don't you dare play too many notes. You could be a jazz player and earn respect from musicians, but the rest of the world doesn't care. Here's a game. Name a jazz player that actually matters. Gene is starting to remind me more of a wrestler than a musical entertainer because he's coming in off the top rope. There are tons of great bassists like Jaco Pastorius and the Jazz Guys, or Flea, who's amazing, but I can't remember anything he plays, and honestly, I don't like the sound of slapped bass. I mean, there's honestly too many memes that I could make from the fact that Gene doesn't like slapped bass. It almost sounds like a backhanded compliment to Flea. Sure, he's talented, but Gene prefers, I suppose, simpler, more melodic lines, even though there's plenty of melodic Flea bass lines, wouldn't you say? Some people dig complexity, others dig simplicity. It's fine, I know, and it feels like on the internet it's sort of like a recreational outrage with any sort of opinion, right? So let's join the fray. I mean, Gene's comments so far are basically like, yeah, those 5-star restaurants are really top-notch and everything, but what the people really want is Burger King. I mean, I like Burger King. It's not my favorite. Five Guys is better burger than Burger King, among many others. But before we start getting hungry, the weird thing is, I thought Gene would actually appreciate Flea. Flea's one of those rare, showy players that also does do what Gene's saying and serves the song and is very simplistic when he needs to be. It's kind of like the drummer Steve Gadd, who's always serving the music, even though they're technically capable of a lot. But in the end, music is subjective. It's all about what moves you. But some might argue, though, if you're talking about technical bass playing, Gene Simmons isn't the first guy that comes to mind. And that might be tough for him and his fans to accept. I mean, he said John McLaughlin, a great player, but can you hum any of his solos? Of course not. Well, can I hum a Gene Simmons bass solo? Yeah, actually, I guess I can. It's just one note. And honestly, I don't get why he mentioned John McLaughlin when we're talking about bass. You know that Musicianship Orchestra song? Well, hold on, I gotta get it. It's called Vital Transformation. I mean, that is a sick melody. Yeah, it's a little fast, but come on, man. But in all seriousness, I can hum Flea's bass part from Give It Away, for example. Yeah. Then again, I'm not really a big Kiss fan, so maybe I'm missing something here. Is there a great Gene Simmons bass solo that I need to know about? And honestly, maybe Gene wasn't trying to throw shade here. I get it. I mean, that's why Kurt Cobain's simple yet catchy guitar playing resonated with so many. But Flea, his stuff isn't too complex that you can't hum it. It's actually built for a lot of people to latch on to the bass part as a melodic element of the song. A lot of Chili Peppers songs are super catchy because they're melodic in the bass lines, and Californication or Soul to Squeeze or Under the Bridge. You know, I could go on with different moments of melodic bass playing in particular, not even the low end part. So in particular, the guitar solo part of bass playing is demonstrated to a T by Flea. Popular music, millions and millions of album sales in Kiss world, that is relevant numbers. You know, maybe he doesn't understand views or ad revenue or anything like that. He just understands album sales. Flea's the last person you need to be going at in this example. Gene, what are you thinking, man? Musicianship Orchestra, have you ever heard of it? You know, maybe for the uninitiated, that's a deep cut, but widely respected musicians here are getting axed by Gene Simmons, and it's just silly. Maybe Gene just craves the spotlight a little bit more than others. For the record, I've never really been a big Kiss fan. Kiss has always more been about like a marketing machine to me. I loved them when I was 12. They looked sweet. but I never got into the music necessarily. I understand they're influential to certain guitar players that I really respect, so I want to mention that. It's just funny how Gene stirs stuff up every time he voices an opinion. He's a character, and the more people complain, the more he gets talked about, and the more publications want to have him back and make these headlines for us all to get enraged about, sort of pissing people off, and he likes it, I think. There's a strange beauty in that, and Gene is kind of right. Technicality isn't everything. Making the song work is harder than showing off on your instrument. And that reminds me. Didn't I read something recently that Paul Stanley tracked most of the bass lines in the studio for Kiss? Not Gene Simmons. This rant to me just doesn't make a whole lot of sense, other than contributing to the marketing machine that is Kiss. And look, I respect the skill and brilliance involved in writing a successful song that millions of people will hear, but in many ways, the way Gene Simmons discusses music, it feels superficial, it feels shallow at best. It's sort of like getting mad that the latest Kendrick Lamar track doesn't have enough time changes or awesome solo moments. It's as out of place as wondering why Mahavishnu Orchestra isn't tracking with NSYNC fans. I think if you can't critique music without coming off as biased or uninformed, then you should just stick to talking about music that you genuinely appreciate. I mean, there's so much music out there for everyone's preference. It's all covered. Evaluating music through a marketing lens should be left to marketing people and not people who purely enjoy music for music, which Gene does, right? Right? It reminds me of something I heard a bassist, I think it was Bobby Dahl, Poison, on this old VH1 like behind the music documentary where he was like, I don't want to be a musician, I want to be a rock star, something like that.
I didn't grow up and listen to Bach, I grew up and listened to AC/DC. It has nothing to do with musicianship, it's about rock and roll.
That seems to be what Gene's getting at, right or wrong. I recognize Kiss as an American icon, I give them credit for that completely, but if the act boils down to clownish antics, probably just rather watch Spinal Tap.
The numbers all go to 11.
Does that mean it's louder? Is it any louder?
Well, it's one louder, isn't it?
On the other hand, performances by legends like John McLaughlin, Paco de Lucia, and Al Di Meola stand out as some of the most unforgettable moments that I've ever heard. I listen to their jams a bunch, and they never fail to amaze how they push the boundaries of guitar music. You may not have heard some of these cuts, but I encourage you to seek them out. John McLaughlin is incredibly underrated, and I'm so glad that he made it into this article. And again, I hate to knock Kiss. This is all just light-hearted debate at the end of the day because so many guitarists that I respect and love do like Kiss a lot and cite them as their influence in some way or another. It's just kind of odd when Gene chooses to drag their name through the mud a little bit. But hey, the guy does know how to draw a crowd. What do you guys think about Gene Simmons' opinions? Let me know in the comments, and until next time, keep shredding.